Hello guys, today we're going to be watching how to build a Pokemon deck for beginners. By the way, do collect Pokemon cards. I just reacted the world's biggest Pokemon card collection. So holy, go and check that video after this one. But yeah, I don't know how to build decks for the actual fighting part of it. Yeah,
With
get into it.
3 easy steps and my beginner's guide, by the end of this video, you will know exactly how to make a Pokemon deck.
Why does he say Pokemon?
Hello and welcome to Tim's Gaming Channel. If you are new here, my name is Tim and I create videos helping you become a more knowledgeable Pokemon trainer. So if that's
Okay.
something that interests you, feel free to subscribe. Now let's get into the video. Alright, so first thing is first, I have to give you 2 rules when you are making a deck to remember. So, rule number 1, your deck will be a total of 60 cards, okay? You want to make sure that you have 60 cards in your deck. You also cannot have more than 4 of the same identical card. So those are the 2 rules. Now, let's get into my 3 steps. Alright, so step number 1 is to pick a type. So for this deck, I have chosen the fire type. I will be showing you cards that will be focused on building a fire type deck that you can use. Whenever you are picking a type, you want to make sure that you use a mono type deck. As a beginner, it is much easier to use only one type rather than 2, and I'll show you why. Because here I have 2 different energies, and to balance your deck with water and electric can be challenging because you
But what? There's not that many. If you get what I mean, look at Pokemon with. I only have. I don't know where this guy's got. Yeah.
might not really know how many water and how many electric you should have. Whereas with a mono type deck, you can just put 18 energy cards in your deck and it should be good. So that is my best advice, is to use 18 of the same energy, so it is easier for you to build a beginner deck. Alright, so now that we have our 18 energies in the deck, that means we now have gone from 60 cards down to 42. So, with our remaining 42 spots, we will now move on from our 18 energy cards to trainer cards, which consist of supporters and items. So, it can be a little tricky to find the balance between supporter cards and item cards. So I have divided them all out here. You might not be able to see all of them, but that's okay. I will explain why you might want to add certain kinds of cards. So I'll start with the supporter cards. So I have, out of all of the supporters and item cards, there are 20 total. And 20 total trainer cards. 11 of them are supporter cards. And like I said before, back at the beginning, how you can have up to 4 copies of this same type of card.
How does he have so many?
As you can see here, I have 4 copies of the supporter card Hop.
How does he have so many?
He allows us to draw 3 cards, and a card like this is very helpful in a beginner's deck. It allows you to, if you don't have enough energy, or perhaps you don't have another basic Pokemon to put on the bench, drawing 3 cards can be very helpful. I also have 2 beauty cards here, which will allow us to attach a basic energy from our hand to one of our benched Pokemon. And what this allows us to do is add more than one energy per turn, which can be very helpful if you need to catch up to your opponent. I have 2 copies of that card. And then I also have 2 copies of Pokekid. Pokekid allows
Pika
you to
Pika!
search your deck for a Pokemon and put it into your hand and then shuffle your deck. I have 2 copies of this. It can be helpful if you are trying to get an evolution card and evolve one of your Pokemon. Pokekid can be very helpful. Perhaps you
How
started
does
the
that
game very
work?
poorly. I have 3 copies of Professor's Research. If you either just don't have the right cards, or maybe you're in the middle of the game and you don't have a very good hand, Professor's Research can be very helpful to just discard cards and draw 7. Now, those were all of the supporter cards, and I will now show you the item cards. So there's only, out of the 20 trainer cards, there's only 9 item cards. And the reason for that is that supporter cards are generally going to be more helpful, which is why you can only use 1 per turn. So that is why we are going to have more of them. We have fewer item cards because they're more situational. You use them when you are in a very specific situation. Like, for example, this 1 copy of Ordinary Rod here, it will allow you to choose one or both of these 2 choices. You can either shuffle up to 2 Pokemon from your deck, or from your discard pile, into your deck, or you can shuffle up to 2 basic energy cards from your discard pile into your deck. Now, putting Pokemon cards into your deck might not seem that helpful, but if you are running low and it is in the late game and you might draw too many cards and lose, you can use this card to put cards from the discard pile back into your deck, which is a very specific situation, which is why we only have 1 copy of it in the deck.
Yeah.
We also only have 1 copy of Pokemon Catcher and Pokegear 3.0. So the Pokegear will allow you to look at the top 7 cards of your deck, reveal a...
Don't get the cards too mucky. Don't you want to send them into PSA after you're done with this video?
supporter card there and put it into your hand. Then you will shuffle your
So what deck cards come from?
deck. This is another very specific situational card. Perhaps you do not have any supporter cards and you could really use one. You are in a pinch. This card can be very helpful, but we only have 1 copy. It is a very specific situation. And the Pokemon Catcher is just sort of a fun card where you can flip a coin. If heads, switch one of your opponent's Pokemon, benched Pokemon, with their active Pokemon. So perhaps you are struggling against a very specific Pokemon, or maybe your opponent has a Pokemon that's about to get knocked out, but it's on their bench. You can switch them in to the active spot and knock them out and take a prize card. Once again, we only have 1 copy because it is a specific situation. On to the more broad item cards. I have 4 copies, which is the maximum again, for a Great Ball. So
why not Ultra Ball?
A Great Ball will allow us to look at the top 7 cards of our deck. We may reveal a Pokemon that we find there, put them into our hand, and then shuffle the deck. The Great Ball is very helpful in all kinds of situations where you may want to get a specific Pokemon. So that is why we have
Don't mind me.
4 copies of it in here. And you might be wondering, well, doesn't Pokekid kind of do the same thing? And yes, he does. However, you can only play 1 supporter card in your turn, whereas you can play as many item cards as you want in your turn, which is why we have 4 of the Great Ball and only 2 of the Pokekid. Finally, I will have 2 switch cards for a situation where you may not want to waste all the energy that is attached to one of your active Pokemon. You don't want to retreat them. Perhaps they have a retreat cost of 4, which is very expensive. You may not want to waste all of that energy, so you can use a switch instead, which allows you to switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench
Pokemon.
Pokemon. Once again, a
Pokemon.
very situational card, but that is why we have 2 of them.
Put the audio.
That's what we have for the second step. We have now gone through 18 energies and 20 trainer cards. We will now move on to the third and final step. All right, so now we are on the third and final step. This step that is most fun. We are going to pick our Pokemon. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, you are going to pick a type, and generally speaking, you are going to pick 2 evolution chains, maybe even 3, where it'll focus around the energy type that you picked. So for this deck I have fire, so I will have a bunch of fire Pokemon in this deck. However, there will be other types of Pokemon, and I will get to that later. First, let me just go back to the beginning where I mentioned dual types. I'd suggest whenever you're picking Pokemon, do not use dragon types, because
What? Dragon types are especially nice. I don't know why you using Dragonair as an example.
Because they have the dual typing of whether it would be water and electric or perhaps something else, which is why I suggest if you are going to build a Pokemon deck, perhaps start with any other type of Pokemon except for Dragon. Now that I got that out of the way, let me get into it.
You know what? If I was, I'd make Dragon a bit face and verse this man right here. Yeah?
So, to have Pokemon in our deck and to make it work properly, generally speaking, you will have 3 evolution lines and then approximately 2 to 3 basic lines. And I will show you what I mean by that. So,
2 evolutions. That's what I think you mean.
As you can see here, I have a evolution line that involves Scorbunny, Reboot,
by using Hop's team.
Let me try and hold that better. Scorbunny, Reboot, and Cinderace. And these cards are going to make up our evolution line. So, because there are 2 evolutions in this, it'll go from a basic to a stage 1 to a stage 2. You can find this out by looking in the top left-hand corner. We are going to have this evolution line. So here's one evolution line. I also have a Vulpix and Ninetales evolution line, which I will show you here, right? And a Wooloo and Dubwool evolution line, as you can see here, if I can pick up the card properly. A Wooloo and Dubwool evolution line. So those are 3 evolutions that we will have in the deck. And then, like I mentioned, you will have 2 basic lines. So what does that mean? You will have 2 basic Pokemon that do not evolve. As you can see here, I have Sudowoodo and...
Why not use legendaries? Because the legendaries are just as good, I'd say. But also, Sudowoodo isn't a fighting type. Sort of is, but above ground.
And then Drampa. So let me further explain how this is going to work. So, whenever you have an evolution line of 3 Pokemon, meaning you go all the way up to stage 2, you're going to have this exact amount, as I explain here. You will have 3 of the basic evolution for that card. You'll then have 3 of the stage 1 evolution for that card, as you can see, Reboot here. And then you will only have 2 of the final evolution, which will be the Stage 2 card. And the reasoning for this is that if you have more than 2 Stage 2 cards, you may draw too many of them early in the game and not be able to keep playing, which can be problematic, which is why you want more of the basic Pokemon and less of its final evolution.
That's what I was thinking. Why not for all of your team, apart from well, why not like evolve all of them? But he's basically they were always learned.
So you're probably thinking, now what do you do in the instance where you have an evolution for a Pokemon where they only evolve once, like Vulpix only evolves once into Ninetales? So what you're going to do is you're going to start again with 3 of the basic Pokemon.
I would do 3. Like I would do 3 2-stage evolution. No, 2 2-stage, 1. Yeah, because they're just easier than needing to
Which
grind.
is Vulpix here. And then 2 of the Ninetales. So unlike in evolution chain where we went from Scorbunny to Reboot to Cinderace, it went 3, 3, and then 2. Instead, for the Vulpix into Ninetales, it just goes 3 into 2. The same goes for Wooloo into Dubwool. So we have 3 copies of Wooloo, and then 2 copies of Dubwool. As I struggle to pick them up. As you can see here, 3 copies of Wooloo, 2 copies of Dubwool, because he only evolves once. So those were our 3 evolutions. Now for me to explain the basic Pokemon that do not evolve.
Pokemon.
So the reason you want to have these in your deck is because generally speaking, they will require only a little bit of energy to use their moves. And they also typically have higher HP than a typical basic Pokemon that does evolve. So as you can see here, Sudowoodo has 100 HP and both of his moves only require 1 energy. Whereas Scorbunny has a move that requires up to 2 energy, but his HP is only 70 rather than 100. And generally these cards that are just basic and do not evolve typically also have a move that will help you out. So you want to use a Pokemon like Sudowoodo because he is helpful with his first move, which is Double Draw, which will allow me to draw 2 cards for only 1 energy. This is also helpful because he has a retreat cost of only 1 energy. So it's easy for you to put them into play and also retreat them when needed. And because of his high HP, they can stay in a little bit longer. As you can see here with the Drampa, he has 130 HP, which is a lot for a basic Pokemon. But that's why you want them in your deck, because you could...
What do you do? Pokemon. That big. What do you do with them? Don't battle with them.
Could potentially start out the game with perhaps a Drampa. You put them in and they can stay there for a while. He also has a move that can be helpful. Well, not that helpful, but kind of helpful. Because for Dragon Pulse, it only requires 2 energy. And you will discard the top 2 cards of your deck, which may not seem that helpful. But it is a move that only requires 2 energy, but does 80 damage, which is a ton. Now you're probably also wondering, if my deck is fire type, how can I have other cards that are not fire type in it? So, whenever you are building a deck, I suggest Also looking at a lot of normal type Pokemon cards. The reason for this is that you do not need any specific type of energy to use their moves. Whereas this Vulpix here specifically needs a fire energy to use her flare move. Whereas Drampa can use 2 energy of any type, meaning you can pretty much put him in any.
Is that what that means? What? I thought it meant something completely different. I thought you meant use this energy. Because there are energies of that kind. I didn't know that. Learn something. Learn something.
Any deck that you build. The same goes for pretty much any normal type Pokemon card. But then you're probably also wondering, how can I put in a Sudowoodo when he is not normal type? Well, you can look at pretty much any card, and as long as their moves do not require any specific type of energy, you can pretty much use them in any kind of deck that you want. See here, Sudowoodo has 2 moves, and neither of them require a fighting energy, even though he is a fighting type card. So altogether, we have 22 Pokemon card with 3 evolution chains, where 2 of which only go up to stage 1, whereas the main evolution chain of this deck goes up to stage 2, so we can use the Cinder Ace.
I wonder if there's a stage 3.
My camera would focus.
Technically, that is stage 3.
There we go. And then after we have the 3 evolutions and our main stage 2 evolution, we have 2 copies of just the basic cards that have higher HP and moves that can be used with any type of energy. We add them to the deck, and there you have it. We have 22 Pokemon. We've sorted out the number of Pokemon we need. We've sorted out the number of trainer cards that we need. And we've sorted out the number of energy cards to give us a total of 60 cards in our deck. And it is now usable for battle. If you need help, further help, you can always look for a theme deck in any type of store.
Okay, yeah. That was helpful, but obviously I won't actually like build an actual deck, obviously. But guys have it. Alright. I've just reacted. Just want vaccine. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you did, punch do this to the like button. Okay, yeah, this is the like button. Demolish it. If you feel like nice, yeah, woke up on the right side of your bed, please considering subscribing. Okay? And these are 2 videos. That's me, and that's one here somewhere. Where the video is. So yeah, one of these. Okay, bye. I hope you've been.